It is March the 4th, 2025, and I needed to follow up on some work that I started back in December. I wanted to look at oversight organizations in the county and in the city and the county, and I started with the internal audit manager for the city of Cincinnati because it was the most identifiable on all the research that I was doing. And I started with the Municipal Code, Article 2, Section 15, which governs the internal audit function for the city. And I wound up asking for records to show in what way the internal audit manager satisfied the requirements of Article 2, Section 15. I also looked at, I think 10 years worth of reports that they have on their website. Focused in on the most recent year, and I put a video on my Facebook page back in December 27, I think, which was before I started my little podcast here. But it's still there if you want to go back and look at it, and it has a lot of background on what I'm doing. Anyway, the Municipal Code requires several things of the internal audit manager, and then there are other provisions or other postings on the city manager's website or the internal audit manager's website that are relevant as well that I wanted to follow up on. I made a records request. I did get some records back several weeks ago, but there have been other distractions and things going on with the city that I felt I should probably deal with before I spent time on this follow-up. Anyway, I got records back, and I'm going to report out on what the records request showed us. The number one requirement that I was interested in, or that I thought was very interesting, was the provision in the code that said that the internal audit manager shall prepare a detailed budget every year, and that the internal audit manager shall send it directly to the council. Bypass the city manager's office, just a direct submission from the internal audit manager to the council, no input or interference from the city manager. I thought that was terrific. Unfortunately, according to the records I got back, they don't do that. The city managers or the internal audit manager's budget is folded in to the city manager office's budget. It's not, you can't tell how much they're spending on the internal audit function. I don't even know how many employees they have, etc. So that would take some more work to try to figure that out. So in my book, that's kind of strike one. Then I looked at a risk assessment. The Municipal Code doesn't require a risk assessment, but there is another place on the website that says that the city manager and the internal audit manager come up with a risk assessment every other year. It's a biennial risk assessment. And, that's what should be driving your audit plan. That's what should be driving the audit work that you're doing. You should identify the risks and then examine those risks and how to reduce or minimize the risks that you've identified. And so I was very interested in the risk assessments, the biennial risk assessments. And the answer came back that, let's see, what did they say? They came back and said they don't have the money for it. Oh, due to limited resources, a citywide risk assessment is not conducted yearly. Well, it's supposed to be conducted biennially. Please see response to question 2 on the process of creating the audit work plan. So that's a no. They do not do a biennial risk assessment. They did produce one in responding to my records request, but it was 10 years old, from 2014, and it was okay. I didn't particularly find it all that useful, but not just because it was 10 years old. I just don't like the way that particular risk assessment was was written. So that was strike number 2. Strike number 3 is what was strike number 3? Oh, the work plan. No, not the work plan. The peer reviews. Peer reviews is strike number 3. The Municipal Code requires that the internal audit manager shall supervise the internal audit division and conduct operational audits within generally accepted government auditing standards. So for all the accountants out there or government financial people or whatever, they'll understand what the generally accepted government auditing standards, GAGAS is what they call it, what that's all about. When I was working, our audit work at least, not our investigative work, but our audit work was governed by those standards. And the idea was to make sure that people had the confidence in your work because you had to operate it according to these standards. And then a key part of that is, and this is required by the standards too. I think there's some gray exception in there that I think the city's trying to use in their defense, but you have to have your operation peer reviewed. Another comparable internal audit group or audit group comes in and looks at your operations and determines or judges whether you are operating according to the standards. And you can do it in like a reciprocal where you get an internal audit group from Dayton, Ohio, for example, to come in and peer review your agency, and then you go back there, or you get several in a group that will circulate and do peer reviews, or you can hire an outside audit agency or an outside audit organization, a public accounting firm or something, to come in and do a peer review type audit. But they don't do that. They say due to limited resources, a peer review has not been conducted. I think they mean has not been conducted ever, which it says per generally accepted government auditing standards, IA discloses this in every audit report. Well, that's not the point. What they say is that they do their work according to standards, except nobody comes in and checks on whether they're doing the work according to standards. You have to take their word for it. So very unsatisfactory. So that's strike 3 in my book anyway. And then the work plans they did provide work plans. I asked for the work plans. There's a requirement they come up with an annual work plan. They do it in consultation with the city manager and the audit committee. And but they're not put together like a report. I just have audit plans for several years here on just blank sheets of paper that doesn't even have the city's letterhead or anything like that. But anyway, so let's say they did the audit plans, so they get by on that one. And then follow-up audits. Follow-up audits are very interesting. They do carry out follow-up audits, which is a good thing. Their policy, I guess, is to do follow-up audits 6 months after they complete an audit. And the purpose of the follow-up audit is to see to what degree or what extent the agency who received the recommendations have followed through and implemented them. And so 6 months after the audit, the internal audit manager issues a report to the city manager saying, here's where we stand on the recommendations. So they provided me 13 what they call closeout memos, I think, or follow-up memos. I did get 13 of them, 6 for 2023 and 7 for 2024. And they do have a little chart at the end of the report to sort of give you a color code of where the recommendations stand. And the internal auditor makes a lot of recommendations, probably too many if you ask me. But so they do that, and that's a good thing. So that's where we stand, and I'm going to come back again on another one because part of my records request was for the I wanted to know the substance of whatever was submitted to the fraud, waste, and abuse tip line or hotline. I didn't want names of people who had filed complaints. I just wanted to know what they were all about, I should say. And this afternoon, I did finally get a response. It's heavily redacted, of course, but I'm going to save that for another podcast down the road. At first glance, they do not look too interesting, and the interesting ones are probably totally redacted. There are some heavy redactions in there, so my guess is that the heavy redactions are the ones that we really want to know about. Anyway, as part of my review here, I did send a letter to the internal audit manager where I laid out all of my observations, and I actually posted that on my Facebook account a couple months ago in December. She never got back to me. I offered to meet with her. I offered to go over this with her. Nothing. Not thank you for your email. I appreciate it. Nothing like that. It's really strange. And then I also applied for the mayor's, it was a mayoral appointment for the audit committee, because when I looked at it, it looked like they had a couple openings. So I did put in an application. I heard nothing back. And I mean, they don't even say thank you for your interest or anything like that. You just hear nothing, which does not seem like a good business practice. Anyway, I didn't get appointed, and shortly after that, the mayor did announce the reappointment of two of the members of the committee. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe I'll have another opportunity to do that. But it's really hard to assess some of these things from the outside. You really have to try to get inside and see what's really going on. Maybe if the charter committee is able to get one person or two people on the city council next year, we'll have a better chance of finding out what's going on.